Alright, there are a lot of premium planes in War Thunder, many of which are at rank 7. So with that in mind, in this video I'm going to go over my top 3 rank 7 premium jets. My number 3 pick is the French Mirage F1C-200. Let's take a look at the airframe and performance first. It sits at battle rating 12.0, so it has okay flight performance overall, though there are much better planes at this BR. The manoeuvrability is decent, though the pilot quite likes to black out in hard turns, as you'll see in this clip. It has a good top speed, and its afterburner is very fuel efficient, so you can take lower fuel loads to save weight and still use the afterburner quite often. Let's move on to the avionics and other equipment. The radar set is okay, it's workable. It has an MTI mode for search, which is basically a not as good version of pulse Doppler radar. One flaw, however, of the MTI mode: if the target is moving away at roughly the same speed, it won't be able to see it and it will lose the target lock. Next up is the radar warning receiver, or RWR, which is quite basic in this case. It has no track indication, only detects I and J radar bands. Basically, if it's flashing the CW warning, it's likely you've been locked on by a radar missile. One great feature of this plane is the countermeasures. It has 192 in total, which includes large caliber. It also has the CCIP ballistic computer for rockets and bombs. And finally, for extra equipment, it can also equip drop tanks for additional fuel. Now onto the weaponry. This plane has two 30mm cannons built in. It can also take 2 additional 30mm gun pods in place of 2 of the missiles. For semi-active radar missiles, it has the Super 530F. The missile itself has good manoeuvrability. It's a pulse seeker head, so it's very easily fooled by the first chaff it sees, so I would recommend not using this. It also has access to the 530E, which is a medium range infrared missile. Personally, I have more success with this than the radar missiles. You can fire at a target around 4 kilometers away. It's great for unsuspecting base bombers. And finally, the star of the show, the main reason I rank this plane so highly, is the Magic 2 short range infrared missiles. These have IRCCM, so they often ignore flares. If you fire at the rear aspect of a target under 2 kilometers, it's pretty much a free kill. If you enjoy base bombing, you can replace some of the missiles with bombs. There's 2 additional pylons that can hold bombs as well, but it's a better fighter than a bomber. And on screen, these are the loadouts I usually use. In the number 2 position is the MiG-23 ML. This sits at 11.7 BR, and since the recent changes in July, it misses out on a lot of tough opponents such as F-15. As for flight performance and airframe, it has a great flight model even after the recent nerfs. It has swing wings, and when extended it can sustain turns quite well while retaining energy. You will see the reduced speed warning a lot. Now let's take a look at the avionics and other equipment. The radar set that this plane has is quite unique. It automatically switches between search and MTI mode. This is dependent on the altitude the plane is at and where the nose is pointing in relation to the horizon. Some people find this easier than manually switching, but it does annoy a lot of people. The radar also has quite good chaff filtering. The RWR is quite basic, whilst it does have tracking detection. There are a few radar bands it can't detect, some of which are used by planes at this BR. As for countermeasures, the plane can carry up to 72 large caliber countermeasures, which is quite good. For the ballistics computer, it does only have CCIP for rockets, not bombs. And it also has a drop tank available for additional fuel, though this will replace one set of countermeasures. Now let's take a look at the weaponry the MiG-23 can equip. It has an inbuilt 23mm cannon with a very high rate of fire, though it does have low capacity, so you will burn through this quite fast. For the short range infrared missile, it has the R60M, which is all aspect, though it is quite flare hungry. You can, however, carry 4 on the middle pylons, or 6 in total. We then have the R24R radar missile. This is a good missile in terms of range and manoeuvrability, and it works very well with the radar that the MiG-23 has. Also, as a note, some RWRs cannot detect the launch of this missile. One example is the British F4J UK. And finally is the R24T. This is an infrared variant of the previous missile. This can be used with the radar turned off using the IRST, so the enemy will get no radar warning whatsoever. This is great for catching those unaware base bombers out. On screen now is the 2 loadouts that I switch between using. If you're looking to base bomb, it wouldn't be recommended to do it with this plane. You sacrifice too much of your air-to-air loadout, and you have no ballistics computer for bombs. And finally, at number 1 is the F4S Phantom, which is a battle rating 12.0 US Premium. So let's look at the airframe and performance first. It's a Phantom at the end of the day, though in this case it has the leading edge slats, so it has better manoeuvrability than other Phantoms. Has good engines, but it's not a pure dogfighter. Now to look at the avionics and other equipment. It has a great radar with pulse Doppler mode, which also has helmet mounted sight capability, also known as HMS. Using the HMS, where you can freely look around and get a lock using the camera, as you can see in this clip. The RWR is usable, though it is confusing to some new users, with its various high and low warnings. These are actually related to the radar band of the enemy plane, not the altitude. It has a total of 60 countermeasures, which, whilst it's not the most, it's better than nothing. In terms of ballistic computer, it has CCIP for both bombs and rocket. It also has a radar gun sight, which is great for ensuring you don't waste your ammunition with the gun pod. This also works very well with the HMS capability. Now let's move on to the weaponry. For infrared missiles, it can carry the AIM-9H. This is rear aspect only, not as effective as the previous 2 planes' short-range IR missiles. However, you can use this in conjunction with the HMS targeting system to get some off-ball sight shots. The plane itself has no internal guns, so you're forced to mount the 20mm gun pod. This has a high rate of fire, but does increase the weight and drag of the plane. Though with that in mind, it is still recommended to take the gun pod. And finally, the F4S has access to the AIM-7F Sparrow semi-active radar homing missile. This is the main weapon that you'll be using with this plane. This has decent range and a long tracking time. You can still use this missile effectively in close to mid-range as well, paired with the HMS. As you can see in this example, I've successfully pulled off a 23km shot with the AIM-7F. Whilst we wait for the missile to hit, why don't you take the time to hit like and subscribe. If you're so inclined to bomb bases in Air RB, you can actually take additional bombs alongside your air-to-air loadout without too big a sacrifice on this plane. And finally, on screen right now is my recommended loadout for the F4S. So that was my top 3 Rank 7 Premium plane. Why don't you let me know in the comments if you have any that you prefer.